Hey everyone, Todd Snaver with Bowtech Archery. As you know, this is Tech Talk Thursday, and as we talked about last week, you know, there's a great area out here with our master technician, RodDogg, and it's called the Dog House, which is what you see behind me. So Rod is in there working their way. He's got a couple bows going in there. Some customers have sent some stuff in for some custom strings and cables. But we wanted to walk you through setting up a bow. We get a lot of questions coming in. Now, you might notice we're not live. We're actually in the middle of the factory, so it's a little harder to get a signal out here. But again, we get all these questions about, you know, setting up a bow. What's the proper way to set up a bow? We hear a lot of people asking about setting up the overdrive binary cam system with a laser. So we're going to bring you into the Dog House, and Rod is going to walk you through how to do that. We're going to go through tying in a D-loop, tying in a peep, just getting that bow set up and tuned. So, and we'll also talk about some issues that we see coming in that are really easy fixes. So let's go in here and see what Dogg's doing and talk with him a little bit. Hey, there he is, Mr. RodDogg in the flesh.
Hello.
How you doing, Rod?
Good, you?
All right, let's shut this door so nobody comes in and bums us. So, as you know, I'm sure you know this is the most famous guy in the factory. Now, this is Rod, the dog, Doggett. So, we came to you last week and we had a really good session. We had a lot of good questions coming in. I think we had, unfortunately, we weren't able to answer any of the questions on Facebook because we were monitoring a couple different channels. But you were kind enough to hop in there and answer quite a few of those questions afterwards. So.
Yeah, I got home, opened up my phone, and it just automatically popped up questions. Like, oh, I can answer that one.
I love it. I love it. So that's, you know, direct access to Dogg. So this is why we like these questions, because we can field those. Rod gets some ideas what we can talk about. Him and I discussed it a couple days ago. What would be something really cool to share with you from the Dog House? And we're like, hey, let's set up a bow. Let's set up a D-loop. Let's set up a peep. Let's show those things that Rod sees common that come in here that are really sometimes screwed up. Some of the easy stuff that cause issues with the bow, right?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
so
it's pretty simple to set one up if you do it with a T-square.
Yeah.
Start with your T-square.
Pretty darn easy. So hey, let's do that. Let's walk through. I think we have a Realm X sitting over here. So let's go through the basic setup, and we'll answer some questions. I got a lot of good questions I want to answer throughout the rest of the session. But let's go through setting up a Realm X. Let's do the rest. Let's set up the cams, because I think a lot of people don't understand what you're doing, and I think we get too technical sometimes on it. But we want to really explain from setting up the bow till what it does through paper and how it really helps you in your accuracy. So.
Well, some of the stuff you should still take to your dealer to get done.
Yes.
First thing I'm going to do is I have.
So really, any press work, right? I mean, you don't.
Yes. I mean, you shouldn't probably be pressing it yourself.
Right.
And
we definitely recommend you don't do that.
It's one of my biggest issues on a bow that comes back to me is somebody has broke their limb or bent their cam because they're using the wrong press to begin with. So.
And one of the questions that a great question that was asked last week on Facebook was realistically is how you press the bow, and we like Rod said, we don't want you to press the bow, but limb tip style presses. And another question was asked is, do we train our dealers? And we definitely do.
Yes.
Our sales team is well versed in this. We go through a Bowtech University with those guys every year, give them updates as far as the technology, and they in turn go out and hold universities with their dealers in that area and educate them on the technology, how to press this product. So definitely get into your dealer. I mean, we don't, you know, I know you love working on bows, but those are the type of fixes that we don't necessarily want to see in here. We want the
I got
bows
my own
working.
press.
You've got your own press, you know what you're doing. So go ahead and let's talk about that a little bit.
All right. Well,
I'll give you the bow. Let's walk over to the bench.
Let's set it on the table here so everybody can get a bird's eye view of this thing.
So I'm going to get out of your way, Rod, here. I'm going to let you go to town. Nobody wants to see me. They want to see you. So we're going to go to town. So walk us through setting up the cam system.
This particular bow is a Realm X, and if you'll notice, the cam has a raised area on it. That's where we're going to lay our laser on that raised surface. Can you see that? Okay. So we're going to lay this spot hog laser right on that raised surface and show you where it's hitting on the other end here. It's supposed to hit that edge of that cantilever right there. Can you see that? Okay. You get that top and bottom exactly the same. And one twist in these cables makes a big difference. So you'll hit this end of it and it hits that bearing right there. So top and bottom are exactly the same. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is most people don't shoot knock sets. It's not a knock, it's a knock set, by the way. And E-buttons. These days, it used to be the way to do it. It's the only way to do it. And then it took me like 20 years to figure, hey, D-loops work better. But I can learn. I might be an old dog, but you can teach me a new trick every once in a while. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this knock set. And I got a tool over here to do that with. They make a special tool just for taking these off where it can't cut your serving. And it's got a remover on it. And you just get it into the split. Go like that, and it's gone. So, good tool, ancient. And we'll just take a D-loop here. Find a really good one. That's a pretty good one. And my T-square. T-square first. And I'm going to set that right up here on the center serving. And I'm going to split the burger holes halfway. So the bottom of this T-square, that's absolute 0 is where that is. And I'm splitting these holes right down the middle with the 0 on this T-square, which is where your arrow is going to line up in the end. The reason we do that instead of down here off the center of them holes is because you're getting better clearance. The riser's longer from here to the burger holes than it is from here to the bottom, so that's why we do that. So let me just set this D-loop up here. And there's a correct way to tie one of these. Also, you need your little knot loops opposite of each other when you're done. So,
well, that's a good statement, Rod. Why is that? I mean,
well, if you don't do that, it'll always twist.
Okay.
Always. If you do that, it'll stay where it's at and pull even.
And that's a good thing we had talked about last week. Somebody had asked about their peep turning. So if you do something like that, you're never going to get your peep to stop turning, correct? Because you're always torquing.
You're always twisting it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I'm glad you mentioned that.
So you double this up, you push it through the loop, and you pull one end. Don't over tighten it because you need to move it. Then you're going to go under and through the hole, and over and through the hole, and then you're going to pull the center up. So now we have the correct knot. You can see one's on this side, one's on this side. All right. So when we get that, then we'll put the T-square back on here. Make sure it's at 0 through the center of your burger holes. And the top of that knot, we want, man, I got it pretty tight. The top of that knot, we want pretty close to 1/8 of an inch above center on the 0. And I have my T-square marked so it doesn't take forever to do that. So that's pretty close to where we're going to need it after we get our arrow rest on there. So we got that, and tools. Our needle nose pliers just to get some separation on it, and then we'll take a D-loop spreader. I don't want it super tight because I still might want to move this after I put my peep sight in. I'm going to put my peep sight in, and depending on where your measurement is, 5.5 inches, 6 1/4 inches, it's going to make that D-loop sit different on your string. So
what's a good exercise, Rod? I know we do a lot of, when we're prepping strings here and making strings, what's a good exercise to practice repetitively tying D-loops? I know we do a couple cool things out there on the floor as far as just tying them over and over again. I think we have a couple trainers out there. They'll just tie a bunch of D-loops on a string to get them all the same length.
Basically, that's too long for me already. it's not stretched out. Personally, I would shorten this up as short as I can get it. And on my own personal stuff, I tie serving in between. And I make sure my knock still has room to move in there so I'm not pinching my knock, which causes, if you're right-handed, if your knock pinches, it'll cause you to tear left. If you're left-handed, it's opposite.
That's a
It'll
good
tear
point.
right.
I don't think a lot of people think about that. They set that super tight to the knock and don't realize that that could cause an issue.
It's a severe pinch point at full draw. You're sitting back here, so it's pinching that knock tight. And if you ever notice, if it's tight and you draw your bow back, it'll actually pull your arrow off the rest. It'll pull it up and over, up and over. And
I bet a lot of people have that. I've seen that a lot in the field.
I see it a lot here. All right, once I got my D-loop on, I've got it laser tuned. I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna scale this bow and make sure that my cams are perfectly in time with each other. This actually measures the weight of the bow, it measures the lead off of the bow, it measures the draw length on the bow, and you can set your timing.
And let's talk about our scales. Here we use, I know a lot of people ask when they call in a customer service, we use calibrated load scales, correct?
Calibrated digital, and they get recalibrated once every 3 or 4 months, I think, every quarter.
So why is that so important when you have this versus a spring scale?
Well, the spring scale, when you set this up there, you'll notice this bow at nothing on it is already 4 pounds. So on a spring scale, when you draw a bow back on a spring scale downward like this, you're actually weighing that extra 4 pounds.
That's a very good point.
So if it's 71 on your grain scale, it's really 67 pounds.
Is that a common thing you see a bow come in for?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they come in way too light, way too heavy, and then I put it on my scale, and really, it's just right.
That's a good point. So that's another easy one. You know, something that's utilized to weigh fish isn't necessarily the best thing in the world to tune a bow with. I mean, when you're
actually, you can use a grain scale properly if you lay it on a table and mount it.
Okay.
And you pull your bow this way. Then it's actually not weighing the bow. So
great point. I like it. I think there's a lot of dealers probably out there listening too. That's a good point for them. Yeah. I love it. I love it. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think that's something that I haven't heard before.
Let me check the timing on this thing, because it's got to be good too, or you'll have a hard time tuning the bow. So let's see, this is for right-handed, kind of hard to see unless you can see in the mirror. But these draw stop posts right here and right there on each end should touch these cables exactly the same time. So I'm pulling it, pulling it, pulling it, and they do. So this bow's in time, it's laser tuned, and the D-loop's in the right spot. It should be no problem setting an arrow rest on this and shooting a bullet hole with it through paper.
All right, well, I think we're ready to put a rest on there, and I think
All right.
we have one of the Ripcord Aces over here that we're going to set up. This is one of our sister company's rests, one of the best rests out there for tuning. Ease of setup. So let's go ahead and walk us through that. Initially setting that up, the knock height, everything else. You have your D-loop set, which is a great thing. So
let's see if I can get that cut.
Okay.
Melted. I don't like the end of this. And then we'll get a razor blade. Am I moving too fast for you? Split that. Do a little melting action on this thing. And get a little bump on it so when I put it through the cables, it'll not tend to slide through. I'm going to do that instead of use the football thing it comes with. All right. Now our screws, I'll just use that one there. Suppose we should have done all this on my regular workbench because my tools are over there. All right, let me get a 3/16 Allen wrench. You want this as straight as you can get it. All right. Now we'll take the arrow that we plan on shooting off this arrow rest, which happens to be out there. So let's make sure this is working. Seems to be working. All right. Went to go get my arrow. I'm gonna need an 1/8" Allen wrench. Got it? All right. Thank you, sir. So, we're going to set that up there on the arrow rest. And as you can see, the bottom of this shaft is not centered in the hose. It should be up here. So, I'm going to have to move my arrow rest up to line up with my D-loop, which is very simple. Like that. Look at it again. That looks pretty close. It's worth the first shot anyway. For up and down, that's pretty close. Now we'll check our left and right, and you take a measurement from your riser to your arrow shaft in the back. You can just take your finger and slide it in there and touch the arrow shaft, or you can use a T-square and measure.
That's a good point. Why are you doing that out of the gate?
Well, it's lining it up from the riser out to get your perfect center shot.
Okay.
Okay, so if you got the same measurement back here on this riser, you should have the same measurement up front.
And you've lasered the cams out of the gate. They're set
They're all
square.
set, so.
Now you're squaring your arrow to the riser, right?
Right.
Okay.
So
And you're setting baseline settings at this point, right?
Yeah.
Your starting point.
everything that should be from start to shooting a bullet hole through paper.
Okay.
So that's probably close enough to take your first shot, right? So now I'm going to put the arrow rest through the cable here. I don't know if that's going to be working without the football. Looks like it needs the football, doesn't it? Pretty long. So yeah, we'll use the football. Okay, what did I do with it? There it is. All right. This arrow rest actually comes with a set screw to put in here, so it just locks the arrow rest down to the riser. But we don't want to use it because this is a new bow. It'll mark the riser. So.
But if as a consumer, when they're your dealer setting the bow, they're generally going to lock that down.
Oh, yeah.
Correct. You don't want that rest moving on you in the field.
Don't want the rest moving. Causes issues.
You can tune the bow all day long, but if your rest moves, then you're done. So you're using the football. So you see quite a few rests out there do that. The football's great when you're initially setting up, and you can use it long term as well, but it gives you the ability to make quick adjustments in there. Yeah. I think you're under the same way of thinking as far as, if you're gonna definitely, once it's set or maybe even go through the cable, right?
Well, and it also, once you go through that cable, it's done deal.
Right.
The problem with it's kind of permanent.
Right.
So you have to press the bow to adjust it again.
Yep.
So
again, it's in a press. We don't want you using a press.
So say you're a 29-inch draw, and then you want your 27-inch draw son to shoot that bow later.
Sure, good point.
Well, now you can just move the football.
Oh, good point. I like it.
Yeah. It makes a difference on how far that goes before arrow rest. So let me get another Allen wrench. What did I do with that one? This one? There it is. Got lucky. All right. Could have little fingers. Come on. All right. The head of this screw isn't the best either. There we go. So, let's see if we can't get it on the right one. It's got a cable one and a serving one. So that goes like that. And that one goes like that. Into that. Probably not getting all this, are we? That's good. Come on. There we go. The screw's got coating in it.
So Rod spends a lot of time out here by himself, so you'll notice he talks to himself quite a bit, you know, so.
I got good music usually. Of course, most people around here don't like it.
You listen to that old Waylon Jennings and
I
stuff
listen
like
to
that.
Waylon and Willie and Hank Jr. and Patsy Cline. Some good stuff.
Yeah. Gotta respect that.
We can go the other way and do some Marvin Gaye. All right, let me put this back on the scale. And what I've left this semi-loose so it'll stop on that serving, but it'll still pull this cord. Yep, that's better than semi-loose. Got to tighten it up just a hair more. It's going up above the serving. We want it to stop on the serving and still pull here. So, we'll hook it up again. The draw length on this one, didn't even look to see what it was set, but right there it's pulling it right there. So that's really good. 29.5-inch bow. So we've got that set for our full draw. Now we're going to shorten it approximately 1/2 inch. And tighten that up. Oh, come on. There we go. All right. So now we've got the bow set up and ready to shoot.
And you're gonna leave that tag in on there, correct? And just in case you want to adjust it later.
Exactly. It's a little extra.
There you go.
Never hurt. You can tie a better knot than that. But
Sure.
We're going to take that off. So, all right, so it's ready to shoot.
Let's go shoot some bows.
Do you want to shoot it? It's pretty,
Oh no, you're gonna shoot it.
It's pretty long.
I can shoot it.
It's 29.5-inch draw.
Well, let's do it.
Makes a difference on what kind of hole gets shot through paper.
All right,
if you're shooting it at your draw length or I'm back here. Like
That's
this.
true. Well, let's go out and shoot a bow.
All right. You need a release? I got a good one.
Sweet.
All right. That target about the right height for you?
That'll work.
All right.
All right, Rod, we're out here at the paper, and we were just in there setting the bow up. So what's really the optimal distance? I know we're a good ways back.
That's quite a
from
ways.
paper.
Actually, I do two different things. I start out at like 3 feet,
Okay.
and then I'll go back to like 8 yards, maybe 7, 8 yards, and it'll tell you the way it's actually coming off the bow and if the arrow's correcting or not.
I'm glad you said that, and that's the reason I asked that, because I see a lot of people when I'm in the field, when I'm working with dealers, when I'm working with consumers, that they'll say, man, I just can't get it through to shoot through paper, and they're on top of it the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's not correcting itself when it comes out of the
Right.
bow.
And it depends on the spline of your arrows too. I mean, if you got a stiff spline, you'll tear to the right. You got a weak one, it tears to the left. So
But with our cam system, we probably could fix that.
it's going to
so.
shoot a bullet hole. This is actually overrated for this bow, but it'll shoot.
All right, let's see what it does. First shot. First shot out of the gate. He just set this up, so we'll see what we can do.
So, tears to the right.
So let's get a little close-up shot on that. So we have a little low and a little right. So that's about a half-inch right tear. So a little low, little right. So what we're going to do is do what?
Well, we're going to move your cam timing, because it could be just you and the grip. Now, if I shoot this bow, it might tear a little high, little left.
Right.
Depends on how my hand's in this thing.
Okay.
Which is why, I don't know if you want to show it, but why you do most of this off a hooter shooter. Because it doesn't,
Well, and I like showing this because generally this is what's going to happen in your dealership. So they're going to set up a bow for you, and they're going to want you to shoot the bow because they can, like Rod was just saying, he can shoot this and it could tear a perfect bullet hole for Rod. But if I take it and shoot it, I could get a tear either left or right. So it is.
It's all in the grip right here, and release it in the way you're holding it.
Well, let's go back into the shop real quick and let's fix this.
All right. Little low, little right. Little low, and little right.
So I'm going to take this bow out of the press that you're working on here.
All right.
I think we're going to need a little cam lean tweakage, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll talk about that too after you set your gesture rest there.
All right. So the low part.
So this is a bow rod that came in for a string and cable change, correct? Had a little wear on it.
He was wearing his cables because his cam lean wasn't set properly. So
that's a good point. Sometimes, you know, you
tight.
You play around with a little bit and get it all out of whack. It's just good to get it back to the guy who knows, get her back set the baseline. So
there's a point where you need to take it back to the dealer.
All right, so let
me get a spread on this too. These new realms have a pretty good limb to them. They're wide. So what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the bus cables on this bow so it'll shoot better for Todd. Not particularly me, but it'll be better for Todd. So I'm going to put a half a twist in the right side because we tore right. If you tear left, you're going to start with the left side. So he tore right, so I'm going to put a half a twist at a time in each one of these because we've already laser tuned this bow.
Right.
So you have to do it evenly. Otherwise, you're going to have this start.
So right tear, adjust the right side, left tear, adjust the left side.
Correct.
Super simple like that. So how much did you twist that? One full twist?
I did one half twist at a time.
Okay.
It might not take it all out at once, but it's better to do that than go too far.
Well, this is good to show. We're going to walk that over.
Yeah, it's better to do that than go too far at once, and then you're defeating the purpose of having to press the bow again.
I like coming back here. I get to shoot bows.
Yeah. You could go to a 3D. And turkey season's coming up.
All right, so let's try this one more time. Well, we'll try it a few times, but I think we're going to be much closer here. So I'm going to make sure I'm shooting the bow exactly the same way I did the first time. Make sure we get this release set. Ooh, man, you're pretty close, Rod.
That's pretty close.
Pretty darn close. Let's take a look at that.
That's why you don't go a whole twist at one time.
Oh, yeah. So you move that about a 1/4 inch.
Yes. That's why you don't go a whole twist.
Right.
Because that might have been too much. We already know that arrow rest left and right has been set. So that's good.
Now what we're doing is we're just fine-tuning that string behind the arrow.
Exactly.
Correct. So what does that mean? I mean, downrange. I mean, we're getting this up close, but really downrange, what does that equal if you're getting all that behind that arrow like that?
The vibration, you mean?
Well, just even, you know, what's our ultimate goal with the bow?
Smoothness.
Smoothness.
Shootability.
Yeah, we want to get it's the accuracy, right?
Right.
So if your string's flailing all over, what does that really?
And that was one of the questions last week too. Do you really need that centered up, or what's the effects of it? Well, it affects everything, because if this is hitting over here on the side, when it comes back, it hits that and does all this. So, and over here it's going to do the opposite. So it does have to be centered on that, so it digs it in and stops it right there in the middle. And that way you eliminate 99% of this back and forth vibration.
And what we're doing, we're really tuning the bow at this point. We're not tuning the rest. We're actually tuning a bow at this point.
We've got the rest and everything set on this, so we're actually tuning the bow to your shot.
Exactly. I like it, to me. And one big piece we talk about, you're going to hear this more and more from us, we talk about the accuracy zone without getting too technical. Full draw until that arrow gets to brace height. That is when it's most critical, when that arrow is on the string. After that arrow leaves the string, all bets are off. You can't bring it back. You can't control it at that point. So what Rod is doing, he's controlling that arrow from that point to this point and fine tuning that. What that means downrange is smaller and smaller groups at further distances. And we talk about super technical things all the time, and the only thing that matters is what happens from here to down there, and that's the most accuracy you can get out of a bow.
The other thing I'd like to point out is where we had this bow lasered, it probably would have tuned to you on that shot the first time, except for this arrow that we're using is rated for, it's rated stiffer than this bow.
But what we're showing here is you can really tune any arrow.
You can tune an arrow to this bow.
Well, I'm going to give you this. I'm going to go let you finish that up. I'm going to grab the arrow real quick. So if you want to make the final tweaks on that, we'll come back and see what happens.
Let me look at it and see what we got for sure.
So it looks like you're just a skosh
just a hair, just a hair. Okay.
All right. I'll get the arrow and I'll join you.
Let's fix it. So, one more half twist in the right side, because it still tore a hair to the right. So, and I really don't like that. It's not set perfectly. You can see that.
Good point. That is about an eighth inch off a little bit.
Yeah, so I'll adjust that
while, let's
while
show
we're here by the tools. Let's see, 1/8 inch. It's really easy to adjust one of these also. Loosen that, you can turn that just like this. Get it centered on that hole. Little up pressure, not a lot. And you can see how far it really was off.
Oh wow! So now we have to fix that.
Now we had to center this up to the string. So that takes a 9/64 Allen wrench.
And that's a good point. You just can't adjust this left and right. You've got to adjust it square to the string, right?
Right. So it'll take a 9/64, goes right in the top of that. Loosen that up. Turn it to where it's square to the string. Tighten it back down. All right.
And a lot of that, because it's not square, is because we're making those that fine tune of the string.
We're pulling it just a hair farther than it was just a little bit ago.
So that's a good point. If your dealer is doing that, and if your dealer watching us, make sure you check that, because once you make that adjustment, you want to make sure this is square, because we square it from the factory when we're building it. But if you're making those fine-tuned adjustments, make sure you square that up.
Yep.
Or you're going to kind of be chasing.
Usually anything you do to a bow causes a chain reaction. You got to do something else. So.
All right.
Move your peep sight that far, you got to move your sight.
We want to try it again?
Yep, it's ready.
All right, let's go shoot it again.
Hoe.
All right, I gave us a fresh section of paper right here. Let's put that, make sure I have it oriented exactly the same way. We're close. About an eighth, I would say. Maybe just a little.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
Let me shoot one more, and that could have been even me.
How long is that? 29 and a half?
Yeah, this is actually long for me. Long on the drawing. It's about 2 inches too long.
Could be a reason. Oh, you're only 27 and a half, too?
I am.
Oh,
I am.
geez.
Here's another.
We're all short people around here. Must be the weather.
Oh, I think that was me, Rod. It's just a skosh. Just a skosh. Maybe a half twist even more. And
I don't know if I'd even adjust that. That's pretty close. It'll shoot. Let me try it.
all right, let's see how Dogg shoots it.
It's a long-winded thing, but I'll try it.
I'll hold this. It's very, very slight. You know, for me, another half twist in that would take it right out. This is a good indication to show, for Rod to show,
Let's see what
maybe little tuning differences
Let's
between
see
each
what
of
we got here. I gotta pull it back till that arrow rest works, right?
And see, you got a perfect bowl hole out of it.
I got a bull. Oh. So,
And see, I might have put a little torque in it when I'm shooting it. And we could have walked that out even more, but with Rod, you know, they gave it a perfect bowl hole. That really shows how you can tune this to individual person.
every person's gonna
Yep.
be different on how it's adjusted. I
Yep.
didn't want to go too far with it because this isn't our bow, so
Yep.
I'm gonna have to put it back to where it was.
No, and that's
originally.
okay. That's our bow from back there. So we can put another half in the right side, and it's going to clean it up. So you can see how we're walking that over, and we're fine-tuning that string. Because if I'm putting a little different torque in it than Rod is, it's going to change how that string moves through it.
Just like that.
Rod's been doing this a little longer than I have, so you know, I think there was a challenge on last week. I don't know if you saw it, Dogg, or not. Is somebody put up there that you and I should go do a 3D head-to-head against each other.
Oh, I'm ready.
I'm going to give up right now because he's got a lot more time behind a bow than I have. But I don't know. I think let me shoot a little bit and we'll get out there and do that. Maybe
Yeah.
no one can follow us around on the course.
I think if we want to even the score, you could do the spot shoot. And
Okay.
I'll do the 3D shoot. And
Okay.
then we'll probably break even.
There you go. There you go. So while we're here, let's go in there and show us how to put a peep in.
All right.
I think a lot of people see a lot of differences how to tie one in. I'm going to grab some questions that have come in over the last week, and we can ask you as you're doing that in. But I know a lot of people want to see how to properly tie a peep in. I shouldn't just say tie a peep in, but properly tie
Well,
a peep
there's
in.
really a lot of different ways you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do want to express is you should always go around the outside of that peep
Okay.
and tie that.
Yep.
Because you don't want that peep sight shooting out.
Sure. Well, let's go do it.
Let's see, peep sight. Want to go carbon?
Sure.
All right. So we'll put this back here in the press. And we will get our T-square. Standard here at the factory is 5 3/4 inches from the center of the D-loop, which is not exactly for everybody and depending on the bow axle to axle and everything else, but that's our starting point. So we'll go 5 3/4 inches, which is right there.
So as you're doing that, we had a good question that came in. Is once you set that cam lean, and I think you kind of explained that, but is there ever a need to over time set that again, or is it pretty much?
Oh yeah, you should. Matter of fact, before you put a peep sight or anything, you should do all this. Shoot 50 arrows
Okay.
check it again.
Okay.
Something's stretched, I'm sure. 50 shots.
Settled in. Okay.
Yes. I mean, everything's brand new. It's got wax in it. It's not seated in the grooves exactly where it's going to be.
Okay.
And your mod track's pulling on both cables. So things are going to stretch a little bit to begin with. So shoot 50 arrows, then put your peep sight in.
Right.
And,
I like that.
And then laser tune it again. Put it back to where you had it. And it should tune exactly where it was. So.
Perfect. Perfect. We had a good question come in too. Is any pointers about making your field points and your broadheads hit in the same spot? And it's a great question. But the great thing about the overdrive binary cam system, because we're fine tuning that string, it really helps with that. Because what's happening is, generally with the field point, you don't have those fins in the front. Now, if you're shooting an expandable, generally they're going to fly like a field point, as long as they're a good expandable. But with a fixed blade, generally what's happening is if that back of that arrow is kicking around, those front blades are going to grab and it's going to take off on you. And you're going to get lefts, you're going to get rights, you're going to get varying shots. But what Rod has done by adjusting that overdrive binary cam system in the lean, he's fixed that oscillation in the string left and right, put all that string behind the arrow, that whole path behind the arrow, so you're not going to get all that width, and that broadhead's not going to take over from your vanes in the back. So generally, you're going to get your field points and get your fixed broadheads hitting in the same spot. Again, as long as it's a good quality broadhead. You don't want to buy some bargain basement broadhead with paper thin.
Don't forget
blades.
about arrows.
Yep.
Arrows are important.
It is. Arrows are very important.
I mean, the splining of them and everything, pretty important on the poundage of the bow you're
Correct.
shooting. You can get a bullet, it's like we got a bullet hole with an overrated arrow, but now you put a broadhead on it that, say, is a 75 grain broadhead where we were just shooting 125 grain tip. Now you're not going to hit the same spot.
Right. Good point. Good point. All right.
Everything's
Well, I'll let you start tying. I'll grab another question.
All right. I'll go grab my serving tool here. Just a second. Got to cut a chunk off. All right. Let's just pull some out here. Okay. First thing I'm going to do to this is tie around the center of this. Because if you do this, if you don't have enough twist in your string, it's a possibility that peep sight could fly out of here and it'll hurt somebody or yourself. And I have seen that happen. As long as I got one wrap around that thing like this, it is impossible. It can't come out of that string. So, we got that. I didn't get enough serving, Nolan. We'll melt that in place right there. Okay, it's impossible for that peep sight to come out of that string now. And I didn't get enough serving. You want to cut me another piece?
I can do that.
Or bring me that. It's on my table.
We'll bring it over for you. Good question coming in, Rod. I'll let you, while you're tying, answer this one too. And I'll grab a name here really quick, because this is a good question. Taylor White asked, how many turns can he back out his limb bolt before he has to really worry about it coming out? He has an insanity, not a realm, but an insanity. And this answer is pretty much the same across our bows.
That's got coarse thread on the limb bolt on an insanity. So if you have a grain scale or a scale to check it with, you should never shoot that bow more than 10 pounds off of the maximum weight.
Okay, good point.
So if it's a 70-pound bow, that bow should never be shot under 60 pounds.
Okay.
which I see that all the time
Yep.
too.
Again, you don't necessarily want to count the turns. You want to get into your dealer
Yeah.
with their bow scale and make sure they're checking that. You can't just go by. I get that question all the time. Is how many pounds is it per turn, and it does vary by model.
It does because like this bow here's got a fine threaded bolt, so you can turn this thing 6 times to what it took 2 turns on the others.
Right. Right.
Coarse threads.
So, got to have a bow press or a bow scale to make sure you're doing
which
that.
you can buy at your dealer. I mean, I have one. You just
Digital
hook,
scale.
Yeah, you just hook it in here. It's not digital. It's a spring
Okay.
scale.
Okay.
And you can draw it back and check it that way
Okay.
too. And they work really good. They're accurate. So
But for safety's sake, got to have a scale.
gotta have a scale.
You got to have a scale.
10 pounds. We do make bows that go anywhere from, 5 to 70. But that has an extra hole in the riser. So I'm just going to double that up like that. Tighten it. Keep doing that at least 3 times. Got my peep where I need it, so you wouldn't want to do all this unless you've already made sure it's where you want it. Then you're going to slip it through here. Can you see all that? No? Come on. One more time. Go one more time on the bottom side. Come on. Like that.
This is pretty unique. You're not messing around. You're doubling up the strands. I see a lot of people
Yes,
run
I
a
got-
single strand. I do it myself, so I
got
like that.
double. Then I'm going to go to the upper end of this peep through the hole. That's going to cinch it down even tighter against what I've got going across the center here. Do that about 3 times. And keep in mind, if you're a speed demon,
I was just going to ask you this, so I'll go ahead. So go ahead and answer that one.
if you're a speed demon, the more stuff you put on your string, the slower your bow goes.
Right.
So we've already slowed this bow down by tying this in probably, with that peep and the serving, 5 feet maybe.
Okay.
You've lost 5 feet a second.
And that's another question you get in customer service. My
Yep.
bow is slower after I set it up.
Yep. Anything you put on your string is going to slow it down.
I noticed one thing you did that, kind of differs from person to person. So when you twisted, when you came up your yoke, you stayed on the same strand all the way up and all the way up through. I see some people when they tie in, they go up, they go around the peep, then they switch over to the opposite strand. Does that really matter or no?
Not really, no. And the way I just did it, this is the way we factory did them out here. It's exactly the same tie that we did here from the factory. And it is still possible to slide this whole thing where if it's not perfect for you, you find that it's not perfect, you can still slide all that. Where if you tied both sides of this thing, wrapped it over and come back,
Good point.
You need one of these.
Right. That's a very good point.
Carefully.
Let's grab a couple other questions. We got some good ones in here. Jeremiah Thompson is asking, is there a string wax that you would consider to be the best? Now I'm going to add to his question, how often should you wax your string? I think we may have received that question before. So one, what's the best string wax out there? Doesn't necessarily have to be a brand, but what type of string wax? Or if you have a preferred, let's give a shout out.
I do got a preferred. It's called String Snot.
Yep.
It's called String. I got some over here.
I'll grab that for you while you're doing it.
It's in. It's where my Loctite is. So it's like complete opposite. You want you want something slick or you want something tight.
Exactly.
So this is a String Snot, and it's green. This is a broken tube of it, but it's green. And you'll just want to put some on here. Doesn't take a lot. Every time you see it fray, if you see it starting to fuzz up on you, this is the stuff. Then once you get it on there, you can just rub it all in. I do it until my fingers burn.
Why is that?
It's getting hot and putting it in the material of the string. And the other wax that I like from years ago is TechTalk. And it's more like candle. You heat it up with the lighter and get it kind of fluid.
Okay.
But it actually seems to hold weather better.
Okay.
So it depends on the climate you're in.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
So that stuff, This actually goes right into the pores of the material where that kind of repels what you're putting it on. So, I mean, if you're in wet stuff all the time, like around here.
All right. So we talked about string wax a little bit, and this kind of, taking care of your string kind of segues into this question, as we received a question on bow storage. So and they had really asked, the question was, should you keep it in a bow case or should you hang it up? And it really wasn't, they didn't ask short-term versus long-term. So let's talk about that, short-term versus long-term bow storage.
Well, if you're just hanging it on a wall, I've been in archery shops where there's been bows that sat in a rack. It's the same thing for years, and now you got that much dust on it, which is really bad for your bow. So a bow case is probably your best option, and you can store it in there for years, but you still probably ought to check your string and cables and replace them because it's under tension all that time.
Right.
So keep an eye on that stuff.
What about, I see sometimes people have their bow in the closet, standing in the corner, like sitting on a cam, things like that. Is that a good thing to do?
That's really bad, and this actually happened to a buddy of mine. He left it in the closet.
It was a buddy of his. I have one buddy that did this.
He left it in the closet, standing up, and in the middle of the night, he hears this boom come from the closet. So he goes in there and hears this mouse dead that chewed his string. So yeah, no. Bow case seems to protect everything. So.
That's perfect. Yeah. That's perfect. It really doesn't matter hard, soft case, as long as it's keeping it. Do you recommend putting anything in it, like something to kind of deter moisture or anything like that inside the case?
I don't. It wouldn't hurt. I mean, I keep mine in a bag in a dry room. So.
Well, let's talk about some of just the simple. I know we hit a lot of them, but let's talk about some of the really the issues you see come in here. We hit on this last week a little bit, but some of the simple fix issues that you see come in here.
Simple fix issues is usually timing, laser tuning, and like that bow that we had to take out of the press. It was eating the cables up because his cam lean was bad, and he has his mod and his draw stop post set in 2 different numbers. Okay. So that's a biggie, because what that's allowing you to do, if your mod is set in 3 and your draw stop's in 2, it's allowing you to overdraw that bow a 1/2 inch past the setting on the mod. So when you're doing that, this cam comes around this way into this mod track right here, and now you're passing the end of it. Okay. A 1/2 inch.
And you don't get anything, there's no benefit by doing that other than screwing your bow up, right?
It will wear servings. And the other thing I see a lot of is oversized servings.
That's a good question, because let's talk about strands and servings. So we had a question came in last week about the BT mag, and again, this really applies to any bow. Is there any problem going up? Now, obviously, you generally have to jump 4 strands. I think so is there any problem jumping from a 20, a 20 to a 24? If a bow comes factory with, let's say, a 20, is there a problem? Will it cause any issues jumping up to a 24?
Definitely.
Okay. What kind of issues do you see on something like that?
It makes your serving fatter. Okay. So now you got a fatter diameter. Say this is 109 thousandths, and with a 24 strand, you have 120 thousandths. Well, you're only talking 11 thousandths. Right. But this cam is designed with that mod track for that diameter. Right. So when you go bigger, you're actually cutting on the edge of that mod. It's pulling it in every time you draw the bow back. Pulling it in, cutting it. So that's probably one of my bigger.
And we do that for performance. I mean, you can't really make the track wider because the stock string would get movement inconsistency around in there. So it does have a set width. I mean, generally any cam does that. Our Fanatic is designed, the Fanatic 3 is designed to have a larger strand count for stability for those target archers, things of that nature, because trying to hit a dime every time.
I might even have one to look at. Maybe it's used, but I believe that's the case. So, yeah, here's one of our non-factory things right here on a Fanatic.
So you see some bows over here. These are a lot of shop demos and things like that. Dealers will send back in here and just get spruced up a little bit. Go back out to them. That way they can continue. Not necessarily issues. We do have some consumer bows come in. There's a couple bows.
Well, those are pretty much. It's like that Fanatic. We let him use it it's a shooter.
Right.
So he got to use it for a year, and then he
comes back
every
and
year.
get an opportunity.
Got to have a new one.
Let's see if we had any other good questions there. I really like that question. There we go. I got a lot of comments in here from your daughter, Rod. I really, and I'm sure she's probably your biggest fan. So I love seeing that. So I think she wants you to take over my job. So I'm ready for it.
Probably accounts for all 19,000 posts last week.
There you go. And I do have a great comment from a gentleman said that you should make your own tuning DVD and sell that. So I think that's a good idea. I think you need to. We don't want to lose you to go start your own business, but I think that's a great opportunity there. So let's take a look. Let's see if I get questions.
We got a good camera guy right here.
We do.
We
I think I might have to retire to the camera, run the other camera with him. So I think that's pretty much all the time we have for today. I think we covered a ton of stuff. So I keep those questions coming in. That was some great ideas, even for Rod and I to cover. So when we have this video posted, shoot more of those questions down there. I'll get in there and answer them. I know Rod will have a couple opportunities if he can to get in there and answer those.
If it pops up on a phone that I don't know how to use, but I do know how to text a little bit,
there you go.
No problem.
On your flip phone, you break out the old flip phone and but let us know what you would like to see in there. This is for you. Everything we're doing here, all this content is for you. So let us know. I don't think any question is too unreasonable. Any subject's too unreasonable. I mean, even if we need to go out back and shoot a little bit, we can play around there. Maybe we do this when the weather breaks here. We go out and hit the course out at the local club. And
yeah, I'd hate to see you lose your arrow out in the snow.
I know. We got a little snow today, so. So next Thursday, make sure you tune back in. We're going to hit it again at 2 o'clock Pacific time next Thursday. So I did have a good question, and I apologize, and I promised I would do this, but I did take you on a factory tour out back in our machining facility, and I promised I would come back to you and take you around the factory a little bit more. So next week on, let's go Wednesday, I will take you on another tour. We'll go through our dipping facility, our finished facility, and walk you through that because I know it's a great opportunity to see what we do in here, see all the different areas because we are really an all-in-one factory here. We can do every portion of a bow ourselves here.
Right here.
So I'm going to take you around. We'll show you that. We'll hit the dipping facility next week, and then the following week we'll go through production and show you assembly of a bow. So. But I appreciate it, Dogg, you taking the time again today.
Thank you.
It's always a fun time. Yeah. So I'm going to have to take you up and go out and do some shooting. I think that would be a good
sounds like fun
segment to do,
especially during work.
Absolutely. So thank you for joining us on this week's Tech Talk with RodDogg. We're going to keep this up. So make sure you guys always are always up to speed to know when we go live. So it's super simple. Text "Go Live" to 77453. We have great content all week long from RodDogg, from Nate Zielinski, from Randy Newberg. Not necessarily me. It's all about Rod. It's all about those guys. So make sure you text that. Go Live to 77453, and I will see you next time.
Welcome to the Doghouse.